Jori, the God King, Raidriar, a man become god, a figure of mythic power. This character analysis covers Raidriar, a fan-favorite deuteragonist whose complex arc navigates the nature of immortality over thousands of years. Let's begin.
Be a king, son. Be a king.
The novella Infinity Blade Redemption is split into two different halves, the Pangean chapters and the Deviation chapters. The Pangean chapters focus on the present with the story of Cyrus Issa, while the Deviations are told from the point of view of a man living some many thousands of years earlier. This man was Uriel, and he worked for Galeth. More importantly, Uriel's son, Jori, is mentioned. Jori was a hockey-playing teenager who never saw much of his dad. Jori lived a comfortable lifestyle in a futuristic world where things such as self-driving cars were a normality. It is assumed that he lived in North America due to his frequent hockey matches. Aside from his oft-absent father, Jori had a relatively standard life, until one day when everything changed. A man called Adram was having an affair with Jori's mother, Mary. It remained a secret until one day when Uriel came home early. Upon catching sight of Adram's car in his driveway, Uriel understood what was happening. He caught his wife and her lover in the act, and the illusion of their family was shattered. Adram, obviously wanting to be out of the scene, immediately went to his car and began driving away. Unbeknownst to Adram, however, Jori was making his way home by bicycle. Adram struck Jori with his car, leaving the boy in critical condition. Realizing he was left with a broken family and an injured child, Uriel took matters into his own hands and killed Adram. Jori would have died if not for the nature of his father's profession, however. Uriel was working for the aforementioned Mr. Galeth, a genius CEO who had developed revolutionary satellite technologies, data compression methods, inorganic teleportation, and most importantly, immortality. Uriel brought Jori to Mr. Galeth, where he asked that Jori be given immortality in place of Adram in order to save his life. Mr. Galeth agreed, and Jori became a Deathless. Uriel, whose worldview had completely changed after the recent traumatic events, tells his son one last thing before the end. Be a king, son. Be a king. Jori takes this to heart, and it becomes his new identity, the God King. After the subjugation of humanity by Galeth, the Worker of Secrets, the rise of the Deathless, and the imprisonment of the Worker, Raidriar made his move. Slaying the traitor Ausar the Vile on the plains of Koroth, the God King took the Infinity Blade for himself, beginning a new rule. Every generation, the people of Lantamore would send a sacrifice to the God King. The sacrifice was their greatest warrior, and their small way of fighting back in the face of their oppression. In reality, however, the sacrifice was a reborn version of Ausar, who would live life as a human and attempt to slay the God King before being defeated and reborn again. For tens, or even hundreds of generations, the sacrifice never killed the God King. However, upon the final generation of this cycle needed to charge the blade, the God King was slain by a sacrifice known as Cyrus. This wasn't supposed to happen. The God King pored over records of their fight, taking note of Cyrus's moves. Connecting the dots back to the Worker of Secrets, the God King sent his minions to set up surveillance on the sacrifice. Using this bugged weaponry that Cyrus was in possession of, the God King was able to deduce the man's next move, freeing the Worker of Secrets. With this knowledge, the God King set a simple trap for Cyrus, and was able to take back possession of the blade. With the tool in hand, the God King was preparing to kill Ausar, his nemesis, once and for all.
Oh, I know what you are. Though I am more and more certain that you do not. Thank you for returning this to me.
Give me a sword. Fight me.
I think not. You surprised me last time. I don't think I'll put myself in that position again. You really don't know what you are, do you? Ironic. What did you do to yourself? Oh, sir.
This confirmed two things. Ausar was indeed back, and the God King was no longer in complete control of his domain. For a number of years, things remained stable. Then, Ausar made his presence known to the God King, and challenged him to a duel.
Raidriar! Come and face me, you coward!
With the Infinity Blade active, the God King could not refuse.
I have killed you hundreds of times, but finally you will truly taste death, Ausar!
We shall see.
You always were a vile, plotting wretch, Ausar. Killing me will not end this, you know.
What makes you think I will let you die that easily?
Having been defeated by Ausar, the God King was now being used for a new purpose, replacing the Worker of Secrets in the Vault of Tears. Cyrus believed he would save the world by freeing the Worker. This was disproven as the Worker betrayed Cyrus and left him and Raidriar in the inescapable prison. For 2 years, Raidriar and Cyrus were trapped in the vault, with nothing to do but kill each other. Both killed each other over 2,000 times, averaging over 5 deaths a day. Finally, Cyrus's human, Issa, unlocked the Vault of Tears, and the two Deathless were free to walk from the vault. Raidriar instead killed himself, transferring his QIP to one of his own rebirth chambers. Upon his arrival, he discovered that the Worker of Secrets had taken over his territory by placing a Soulless in his place. The Soulless told his devoted human servants that Raidriar was an imposter, and ordered them to kill him. Raidriar, being thousands of years old, however, easily dispatched these creatures and began plotting his next moves. He decided to join Cyrus, who had been starting a rebellion against the Worker. Raidriar, with the help of a devoted, Eves, set up a device called the Pinnacle of Sanctification that could turn mortals into Deathless. Issa was the first mortal to use this device. The Worker, in his ultimate knowledge, sensed there would be a rebellion and bombed their territory before more Deathless could be made. Cyrus, after going after the Soulless God King and taking back the Infinity Blade, returned to find hundreds of corpses littering the ground, and no living creature other than Raidriar. Raidriar took the Infinity Blade and vowed to kill the Worker.
Still assuming you're going to be able to kill me, Raidriar. You really think I would build a weapon that could destroy me?
Raidriar quickly understood that the Worker was a creature far more powerful and knowledgeable than even himself, and every move he had made would be easily predicted and countered in turn. There was only one who could challenge this entity, an anomaly, Ausar. Raidriar managed to teleport a datapod of the Workers to Cyrus before being killed, and I quote, "The Worker rammed his Infinity Blade down into Raidriar's chest, yelling obscenities. Raidriar's last emotion was pleasure. He could surprise the creature after all, a king. He looked upward, smiling toward the light, as the blade sent him into the infinite."